Hello, everyone. This is your host, Phil Likes Fights, coming at you with a different type of content for the channel, but one that I am possibly the most excited about making for all of you today. That is, I went to both Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano, the trilogy at Madison Square Garden, and then the very next day headed over to Louis Armstrong Stadium to watch the Ring 3 live, and I'm going right now to break down everything that happened in both those events as someone who attended in person. A lot of fun stories to tell, a lot of fights that were excellent to break down. So join with me as I go through all of that and a little bit more. This is the first ever Phil Likes Fights live recap. This is the first ever Phil Likes Fights live recap. All right. Hello, everyone. Here we are, the first ever live recap for the channel. I plan on going forward, whenever I attend the live event, I'm going to come here on the channel a day or so after the fact, just breaking down what my live experience was, how I felt the event did for the casual observer, and just break down the good and the bad and the ugly about the event. And I've got to tell you, for both events, right, we're done by rival promoters. You have Jake Paul and MVP. You've got Riyadh Season and Ring Magazine. Hats off to both organizations because this is going to be a very optimistic show. I have lots of good to say, very little bad, but that doesn't mean that it's still not worth going over here. But very good events by both groups. I can't believe the weekend that I just had. It was a very hectic weekend, of course. I had work that Friday. I then had the event in MSG. I then had work Saturday morning into being out at boxing again all day Saturday night. But I wouldn't trade it for the world. It was an incredible experience. I'm going to get to all the people that I met along the way. And yeah, just you can't buy weekends like that, experiences like that. I mean, I suppose you can buy the tickets, but it's always great to be able to have boxing basically in my backyard and get to experience all that. But without getting into, I hope, rambling territories here, let's get into everything. So let's go back, let's talk about Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano 3, everything heading into that. So for that event, that was all the way out at Madison Square Garden. I took the train to get there. It was not too bad, not too crazy. Of course, it's nice because you can typically take the train right into the arena, which is very fortunate. And got a shout out right away. I met Zakana Boxing. I don't know exactly what her Twitter handle is off the top of my head, but I remember that is her username there. Very nice person. We exchange information, all that. Hopefully, we keep in touch. Very nice person. I always like to meet anyone that's in the online boxing space. It's always a pleasure. The more people I can meet, the better, because we're a small circle. Boxing is not a American football or a soccer, right? It's, sort of tight knit. So you got to meet all the people you can. So she was very nice to meet. Headed in, so I missed the first fight of Tam Tybalt, who I met after the fact. I didn't get a photo with her, but very large woman, very muscular, tall stature. She is one of MVP's best, I don't even know if you can say untold secrets, because, she was featured on one of the biggest female cards of all time, but she's going to be special. But I didn't get to watch her fight in person. I came in right around the Ramla Ali fight. So just to get into that a little bit, Ramla Ali did not win that fight. I'm sorry. That put a sour taste in my mouth to start off the card. I was like, oh man, one, this fight is not even that good, right? And then on top of that, to have a poor decision in a fight that already wasn't amazing to watch, not a great way to start off the night. And the sad thing was as well, her opponent, Lily, or hold on, let me get it here, because Lila Furtado was sitting a few rows away from me. So, I feel for her. I told her about how my opinions on the fight, but it's got to stink when you're that down low on the card. You're sticking around for the rest of the fights, and, many people feel that you didn't even deserve to take a loss that night. Very sad for her, but I think she'll be back. I do, because promoters in that weight class, I think they're going to want someone like her to test out future prospects. But Ramla Ali had been out of the ring for very, very long. I thought that this was even maybe too much of a step up coming back, and you sort of saw that in the fight. So, yeah, not a great way to start off the card there. But then we moved on to Chantel Cameron. And I thought that Chantel Cameron was up against a respectable opponent. Jessica Kamara had been in there with the likes of Caroline Dubois, Hyun-Mi Choi, who was champion for a good stretch of time. So I did think that this was going to be a good enough fight. It was very entertaining. I thought some of the scorecards were a bit harsh on Kamara, but Cameron did come back, did pick up an impressive win. Not too much else to say. I thought maybe she could push for a stoppage late. I was hypothesizing that, but still good on her. All right, here we go. This was the real first fight that made me think, oh, this is a big event. Because when it got to Sugar Neeks, Chernica Johnson versus Sharetta Metcalf, we have to talk about Chernica Johnson because she is one of the hardest hitting women in the entire sport right now. Picked up a 9th round TKO over Sharetta Metcalf. And apparently through the broadcast, there was some controversies around that 4th round knockdown. Let me tell you this. I was about 500 feet away from the ring, okay? That was the clearest knockdown I've ever seen. I mean, of course, that's hyperbole, but there is no chance that that was not a knockdown. Yes, they sort of fell on top of each other after the fact, but Chernica Johnson was putting her punches together very well. When I was doing tape study on this fight, I thought to myself that Metcalf tends to not commit enough into her punches. She tends to throw from the waist a little bit, whereas Chernica Johnson will turn over the shoulder, right? She'll turn the shoulder, she'll rotate the wrist, and you saw that fundamental difference play out large in the fight because that was not a close fight by any stretch of the imagination. So Chernica Johnson, now an undisputed champion at bantamweight, 118 pounds. That was an electric performance because we need more women to win by stoppage. That's another thing too, by the way, about Tam Tybalt. Those were 3-minute rounds, okay? And only her fight was 3-minute rounds. She picked up the stoppage 2 minutes and 18 seconds. So how about, I used to not be too sold one way or the other on, women fighting 2 minutes or 3 minutes. Just give them the minute. I don't want to hear any more weird pseudo-science-y graphs about how women can't fight for 3 minutes and all this stuff. Make it 3 minutes. You can still have the title fights if you're worried about duration. Still have it be, 10 rounds. But I think a lot of fighters on this card, I think Chantel Cameron could have picked up a stoppage if she had 3-minute rounds. I think you saw that happen with Tam Tybalt. And I think Chernica Johnson would have ended this fight in 6 rounds if she had 3 minutes. The problem was she'd hurt Metcalf, she'd knock her down, and then the round was over. You had no chance whatsoever to follow up. So I think a lot of fights on this card added premier evidence into the argument for 3-minute women's rounds. But yeah, Chernica Johnson, an excellent performance. I have to say, so one unique thing about my experience was I believe I was seated about 5 rows away from Sharetta Metcalf's either family or network of close friends. They were all adorning Sharetta Metcalf merchandise, and boxing is a brilliant sport, but it's also a heart-wrenching one. And to see Sharetta Metcalf's family, or I presume that was her family, Sharetta Metcalf's close supporters be very loud and boisterous through the first 3 rounds. And once Chernica Johnson, I think, got into a rhythm around that 4th round, they went very silent. And then when the stoppage came, they were very visibly frustrated. So, look, I understand that. You have a woman in Metcalf who picked up a world title, opportunity to become undisputed on a historic female card, to get so close and watch it slip away. I mean, I can't promise that I would have reacted any better, but it was interesting, again, to have that new sort of perspective there, because you don't see that on the broadcast, right? If you're watching at home, you've got Netflix on your TV, you're not going to see their family and how they react. So again, that live experience, it offers a lot of new perspective. It really does. So yeah, but hats off to Chernica Johnson once again. I was surprised, though. I went back to my last podcast. I thought I had Chernica Johnson winning by a stoppage. Apparently I said decision, but that had me scratching my brain. But what didn't have me scratching my brain was I met 2 very nice people. So a former opponent of one Shredder Metcalf is Mio Yoshida, who, okay, I'm going to try to put some of what I saw over on this hand side here. So hopefully you guys are seeing myself and Mio Yoshida. Very nice lady, very nice. Had a brief conversation about her recent fights, about I was wearing my Naoya Inoue hat, so I talked about the Japanese boxing scene at the moment. So very good conversation. She was very nice. I was happy that she took a photo. And it's a shame, by the way, that more people were not asking her for photos, because this is a big time women's event. She's a former world champion. I think people like that, it really puts a smile on their face when you go up to them and you go, I know who you are and I respect what you do, because I do respect Mio Yoshida. I also respect, by the way, another fighter I met in between the Chernica Johnson fight and the Ellie Scottney fight was one junior welterweight contender, Mikewan Williams. So obviously Mikewan Williams coming off of a defeat over, oh goodness gracious, the guy that Devin Haney had stopped. Let me see here. Antonio Moran. I don't even need to look it up. There we go. My brain's working now. Yep, coming off of that fight, but I still think he has a lot of upside. Very nice guy, very conversational. I think much like Yoshida, enjoyed that, I'd asked for a photo. I knew who he was. So pleasure to meet him as well. Hopefully that'll be up here. All right. So got to meet them. Very nice. Let's move on now, talking about Ellie Scottney versus Yamileth Mercado. So Yamileth Mercado is someone that I hold in very high regard. I picked her, by the way. I don't know. I didn't have the show just yet, but I think on my old radio show, I had picked Yamileth Mercado to beat Ramla Ali. I saw that one coming. She's a very, very respectable fighter, one of the best female fighters in all of Mexico. And Ellie Scottney, was in a fight, let's say, but she had a clinical performance. I think the future of female boxing right now is 50% Ellie Scottney and 50% Gabriela Fundora. And I think that is a future mega fight, because right now I believe Fundora is at 115 or 112. Obviously, Scottney is up at 122. But much like a Naoya Inoue, Junto Nakatani situation, I think because of the frame of Fundora, we will see her up at that weight class at 122, maybe a 126. I think that has all the makings of a future mega fight for female boxing, because what I saw Ellie Scottney do was nothing short of incredible. I was already a little bit high on her. Keep in mind, by the way, this is the same Ellie Scottney that fought Chernica Johnson, now undisputed world champion, and had relative little trouble. I mean, it was a fight, it went the distance, but Ellie Scottney has already proved herself now to be far better than Chernica Johnson, far better now than Yamileth Mercado. It's about time that you seriously take notice of her and you start putting her top 10 pound for pound in all of women's fights, all of female fighters. You have to, I think, at this point. I think it's undeniable. Very good performance by her. Looking forward to whatever is next, including, by the way, Mio Yoshida put out a tweet saying that she's number 1 in the IBF and she wants to make that fight happen. So maybe we could see that one. Around that fight, I loved here. I'll preface it with this. During boxing fights, I love to get up and walk around, check out the hallways, see if I find anyone I know. And I met Barry Jones and Darren Barker of DAZN, like the DAZN commentary. And Darren Barker was nice, but I'm not going to play any games here. It was very, very nice to meet Barry Jones. You know, he came up, he said to me, he's like, "You're a big fella, aren't you?" Very funny. If he has a very fun wit to him. I enjoy that sort of British humor. And yeah, he was very fun. I got a photo with them, hopefully, again, right here. But very nice people, very nice. Glad that they were able to take a photo with me. And they weren't working the event, so I think they were just there to support Katie Taylor, which is very understandable. But that leads us into, hold on. Ooh, excuse me. Okay, that leads us into a very good fight that happened at MSG. Shadasia Green versus Savannah Marshall. So this was the most shocking fight of the whole card. I think so. Because I didn't think Shadasia Green had that in her. Now, I know Savannah Marshall had been out of the ring for nearly 2 years. For one reason or another, I decided to just discount that. I figured Marshall was really the only one to push Claressa Shields, who we all understand is one of the greatest female boxers of all time. I just thought that Marshall would just be way too technically sound, but Shadasia Green, a much improved fighter, because Shadasia Green, when she had fought, Franchon Cruz Dezerm, looked, if I'm being quite honest, lost. I thought she looked lost in that fight. It was a dominant performance, top to bottom by Cruz Dezerm. And then in her last fight against Melinda Watpool, didn't look great there. I did not see this coming from Shadasia Green. But activity matters, matchmaking matters, and the real issue was, I think Savannah Marshall was trying to win rounds quietly. Shadasia Green won rounds loudly. And I think that is why Green came out of the other side of a split decision. Look, if the fight went to Savannah Marshall, I wouldn't have had much issue. In fact, I thought that it was amounting for a case for that, especially with Green having a point deduction. But Marshall was getting hurt, really visibly hurt in those middle rounds. You can't be too frustrated when you lose a close fight like that, when you're the one getting visibly hurt, visibly affected. You know, clean, effective punching is the number one criteria. And Green was landing very clean, very sudden shots. So good on her. Really great story. Obviously, she's got Jake Paul and Nikisa Badarian behind her. And I wouldn't mind her being the next opponent for Claressa Shields. Now, I believe Claressa Shields has a fight already scheduled right now, but it's one of her, I think, heavyweight fights that how many people are really excited for that. So let's line up Shadasia Green next. I mean, these women are only getting older. There's only so much money to make, only so big of a pie. Let's get that happening, because I think it would be a great fight. I do. Shadasia Green has serious power, if nothing else. But now I think real technical improvements, because she didn't just win that fight last night with power. I don't want it to be taken like that's what I mean. I'm just saying, when you have neutralizing power, when you can discipline someone with the threat of getting seriously hurt, that is a undeniably great attribute to have. All right. Now this fight really stunk up the card. Alicia Baumgardner versus Jennifer Miranda. What a whatever fight. Really whatever. Baumgardner coming back after, well, one, testing positive for steroids, which it's crazy, by the way, that she still has the win over Christina Lintardo in the rematch on her resume, but okay. And then coming off of that no contest against Delphine Persoon, here she is. So that fight against Persoon was September of 2024. It's now nearly a year later, 10 months later, on the 11th of July. Just not a good performance by Alicia Baumgardner. I thought that she slowed down halfway through the fight. I think she really tried to land big punches instead of working on setting up her offense. The fight, if I looked at the stats, I would venture to guess it was relative low output, did not captivate the audience. She was one of the most popular women there, by the way. In terms of my assessment of how the crowd was reacting to the walkouts, they were really there for Alicia Baumgardner. This was a moment for her, co-main event, to show out, and she just did not do that. Just did not. She didn't throw enough jabs. She just didn't throw enough. And even though she walks away with scorecards that make it look like she had a dominant performance, it just did nothing. It did nothing for the event beyond, 3 world title fights. So that was very disappointing. Very disappointing. But what else can you say? Also, I met ESPN's Mark Kriegel, by the way, who does a lot of those features for Top Rank Boxing. Met him in the hallway as well. So if I have the Mark Kriegel little photo there, I'll show you guys that. Nice guy. I think he was busy or going to something, but it was nice to stop him for a few seconds, just introduce myself, all that. All right, let's get into the big one. Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano 3. So before I get into the fight itself, I meant to go over this a little bit earlier, but we're going to do a little bit of show and tell here. So let me go here. Okay. So I think this t-shirt is sick. So they had the other t-shirts, which were, oh, come on. Now my camera's not going to focus. All right. They had other t-shirts, which were just like the fight poster, but on the shirt. I thought this one is sick. So if you look here, it says, "Greatness demands a trilogy." It has their face-off photo in black and white. And then it has down here the MVP logo, Katie Taylor versus Amanda Serrano, Undisputed Super Lightweight Championship. I thought that was a very cool design. Not often that you see boxing merchandise in cream color, so that was cool. As well as, I also picked up here a poster. So let's see if I could open this. Now, the way that they close this is, oh my goodness. Okay, I'm going to give it one more try here. All right. I'm going to have to abandon that. But the poster is what the poster is. I just got the print of it. They were also giving out, now, I shouldn't have put them up. I already hung them up. But they were giving out hand towels that show Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor on either side. So whoever you were supporting, you have basically a miniature flag with their fighter portrait on it. Very cool. I appreciate that they were handing those out. I think it was limited quantity, but I got there early enough that I was able to get 2 of them because I was there with my mom as well. But okay, now let's get into the fight itself. Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano 3. One thing I want to preface this with is early on in the night, it seemed as though this was an all Puerto Rican affair. There was about 4 or 5 people with some sort of Puerto Rican shirt or iconography for every person wearing an Irish football jersey or, a green shirt. By the time that the main event happened, it was about 1-to-1 in terms of a ratio. It went from 3-to-1 to 1-to-1. All of a sudden, all the Irish poured in. I think Chris Mannix put out a tweet that I tend to agree with. I think they must have all been at nearby bars. And then once Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano were about to fight, all flooded into the arena. It was incredible. Now, the other thing that was incredible was the entire walkout scenario. You had amazing national anthems. I think there's a lot of debate right now if over our anthem something we still need in boxing. When they're done that well, when you've got thousands of people singing along to these anthems with all their heart, with passion and conviction, yes, anthems are still needed in boxing because that just added on to an incredible, absolutely incredible live viewing experience. Apparently, so here's the thing as well. You have to keep in mind, I have not seen a single second of the Netflix live broadcast. But from what I understand, the production seemed to be very good and seemed to capture this moment with a level of respect that it deserved. So that is good if that is the case. But again, I don't know. So yeah, the walkouts were incredible. Amanda Serrano came out with that live artist. Katie Taylor, just the entire arena blew up. It was amazing. Especially so the announcer of the night was Big Mo. When he announced Amanda Serrano and then he spoke in Spanish when he was talking about like para la Boricua. And then the second he said the word like Puerto Rico, the entire arena went from 10 out of 10 to 100 out of 10. It is the loudest I've ever heard a boxing arena. Now, granted, I'm still sort of new to trying to go to a lot of these events, based off time, money, all of that. But that was something like I've never experienced. It was incredible. Even now, talking to this camera here, talking to you guys, just reflecting on it, it was an incredible experience. And now, I'm really glad that I went because guess what? The likelihood of a Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano 4 is very unlikely. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to hear an ambiance like that for an Irish-Puerto Rican fight for quite some time. So yeah, incredible. Now, this is all to be juxtaposed with the fight itself. So the fight I saw live was a very clear 7-3 win for Katie Taylor over Amanda Serrano. What did the scorecards read out? One judge had it a draw, remarkably, and the other two had it exactly as I saw, 97-93, which is 7-3. Yeah, Katie Taylor just won this fight very clearly, very obviously. Amanda Serrano gave up 3 of the first 4 rounds, which means she had to win 5 of the next 6 and just did not accomplish that by any stretch of the imagination. The fact that she even had one judge see it as an even fight is something worth serious ridicule because that is just not an accurate retelling of events. Katie Taylor won that fight. Now, it sucks to say this because there is so much over who won the first fight, especially who won the second fight. A lot of controversy, and I agree. I think that Serrano could have won one of the previous 2 fights, and there'd be really no issue. It would be based on what did you like, the volume and aggression of Serrano or the countering and cleaner work of Katie Taylor. In this fight, Amanda Serrano was hitting a lot of air, was throwing punches preemptively, too far out of range, and Katie Taylor would step back, had bouncy foot movement, and would just throw straight left hands down the pipe and was peppering Serrano up. And it was a very clear fight where Serrano maybe won rounds 3, maybe she won, I think, round 8 or 9, maybe 8 and 9. Katie Taylor bounced back, I think, maybe in the last round. But this was not a fight of any amount of controversy. If anyone thought Amanda Serrano won the fight, I don't know what to tell you beyond that is just not an accurate retelling of events. However, they did show some of the Netflix broadcast on the Jumbotron, right? The live crew had Serrano up after the 6th round, and I was telling to myself, either I'm crazy, I can't score a fight watching live, or the fix is in. There was no way that they should have had Serrano up through 6 or 7 rounds. Just a fictitious account of events. So, because the problem, what happens is, right? I see a clear fight 7 rounds to 3. The judges score it 7 rounds to 3. There is not a single controversy in my mind. I then check social media and everyone's going, oh, Serrano still can't get one. Oh, the live commentators, they thought she was up. That's just a complete farce. But still an absolutely incredible event. All right. I'm now going to get to everything about Ring Magazine, so ring number 3. But before I do, if you're enjoying this live recap, if you're enjoying my perspective of events and how I am portraying them, I don't typically do this in a lot of my videos, but for this one in particular, I'm going to ask a like, a retweet, a subscription. Anything helps. I don't have any sort of way of really monetizing any of this. A lot of this is using up what free time I have to make these videos. So if you could reward this effort that I'm trying to put forward here, again, any sort of support would mean the world, the absolute world. So thank you. Okay, let's get into the next event here. Let's get into Ring Magazine number 3. So the first 2 Ring Magazine cards, which were Conor Benn versus Chris Eubank, and that was followed up with Ryan Garcia versus Rolly Romero. Now, I think Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn was largely a success, especially in terms of that main event, one of the best fights that are going to happen all year. But that undercard left a little bit to be desired. Anthony Yarde and his trilogy was nothing special. There was a couple of interesting undercard fights. Liam Smith versus Aaron McKenna, but wasn't that electric. Then you go to the Times Square card, discounting the whole debacle of nobody was really able to watch and it felt like a weird sort of flex almost. Those fights were dreadful. And we've gone over it on the channel here, but Ryan Garcia with a dreadful performance. Devin Haney versus Ramirez left a lot to be desired. Teofimo and Barboza, if they were by far and away the best fight on the card, you have a serious problem because that was a cagey, low output fight where Teo looked good, but again, that should not be the best fight happening on a card. So you have to realize, from my perspective, I'm coming to this fight, but under a pretense of Ring Magazine branded events have not been that special. Well, I don't know if I'm a particularly lucky individual or they are working on improving each and every time, but Ring Magazine number 3 was a hit, a huge hit. So let's get into it. So this time, unlike MSG, I did not take the train. I decided to drive there. Parking was hectic. I had to pretty much park at Citi Field, which is where the New York Mets play, and then walk to Louis Armstrong Stadium, which was odd and not obvious. I got there, so based on traffic, I was trying to get there for the Morrell fight. I thought that Mohamed Al-Akil was going to fight on this card. I think maybe they pulled him out last moment. So the Morrell fight was happening earlier than I was expecting. So I only caught the second half of that fight or so. But another thing I'll say before I get into the Morrell fight is Louis Armstrong Stadium is a very interesting venue. So it's about 2 tiers. You have the bottom floor, which goes all the way down to the actual ground itself. And then you have a sort of walking area with popcorn shops and you can get soda. And then you can take an escalator to the next floor where there's even more seating. So my ticket had a seat for the second floor. I did not sit the entire night. Not once. I walked around that middle part of the arena, which had a much better view. I was able to engage in all kinds of social things. So that was an interesting experience to be sure. But all right, let's get into it. Imam Kataib, David Morrell. So when I got there, everyone's talking about how Morrell is down on the cards. He needs something big. Now, Kataib looked slow. He looked tired when I got there. I have rewatched this fight since. I had to rewatch this one just to know what happened. Morrell lost this fight. I mean, what happened there? What happened? Because if anyone won, forget 6 rounds, right? If anyone won 5 rounds in this fight, it was Imam Kataib. It just was. Then he had the knockdown. That should be the tiebreaker. I don't understand how Morrell got a scorecard here, but I mean, yeah, Kataib slowed down late, but when you slow down, that doesn't mean that you got swept every round. It means Morrell was getting himself back into the fight, but I don't know. I don't see how Kataib really lost that fight. That takes some very favorable judging, some very particular way of viewing that fight. I don't know. That was much like how the Rama Ali fight started the night off with a sour taste. I thought that was like, oh, that's not a great look. But we move on from that. At the end of that fight, though, there was a British legend, a boxing legend. I met the Adam Smith, who was walking around doing content, I believe, for his own channel. What a guy. We sat there, we talked for a good 5, maybe 10 minutes. I was so over the moon to meet him. I did a quick little impromptu interview with him on my Twitter page. It didn't do that well performance-wise, but I think I'm going to re-upload it, maybe even edit it up. Really nice to meet him. He was, man, he had so many nice things to say about me. I did a little promo for his channel. Let me try to put the photo here. But what a legend Adam Smith is. Great to meet him. I was so over the moon. And it was, again, a shame that not enough people were going up to him and didn't recognize him because, show that man the respect, okay? But all right, after meeting Adam Smith, we get to Subriel Matias taking on WBC champion Alberto Puello, and this was a great fight. A great fight. So I was very pessimistic in my outlook on this fight. I was thinking that Puello was going to win. I didn't have much doubt of that. I thought Subriel Matias, when he lost to Liam Paro, that Puello could produce much of the same kind of performance. But credit to Subriel Matias. A lot of people said that Puello should have won that fight, that he won round 12, which just gave it to them. I'm not someone who typically rewards, it was aggression. But Puello did not do enough. And I think one of the huge benefits of watching a fight live, my eyes on what punches are landing is way better in person. The amount of punches that was just from Puello that was hitting the glove of Matias, it was staggering. I did not realize just how much offense can be muffled by a high guard until I watched Subriel Matias, because he was either riding with the shot, catching the shot on the glove. He had some sneaky, very good defense in this fight that got him over the line, I think, because Matias would land, and he would land flushed. He was going downstairs, then upstairs, but making sure to continue to pepper the body of Puello. I thought Matias had the bigger moments. I did not mind that Subriel Matias won this fight. In fact, that is how I had it that's how I had it scored. So, yeah, hats off to Subriel Matias for recapturing a world title. That is a very hard thing to do, especially when the run that Puello has been on. Coming off of a controversial fight, yes, but still beating Sandor Martin, beat Gary Antoine Russell, beat Batir Akhmedov, very good wins. Puello is not a pushover. So the fact that Matias was able to pick up a win like this is arguably Matias's best win, right? I mean, let's see here. Because Subriel Matias, he never got to fight Richardson Hitchens. So let's see here. Yeah, so we've got the Goiás Valenzuela, which, yeah, okay, it's a good win, but not as good as Puello. Then we've got Ergashev, nowhere close to Puello. The Ponce win, that's good. Ananyan win, good. The Jukambayev win is very good. Very good. No, this is Subriel Matias's best win of his career at 33 years old. So hopefully, well, I was going to say hopefully we get him into a big fight next, but I just remembered they had Dalton Smith in the ring afterwards. And apparently that fight is happening November 22nd. I really hope that Dalton Smith doesn't have some sort of virtuoso performance where he knocks out Matias in 5 rounds, because for some weird, annoying reason, I could see that happening, and I just hope that that is not the case. I desperately, desperately hope that Dalton Smith doesn't all of a sudden knock out Matias and like easily, because I'm not that high on Dalton Smith. I wasn't that high on him to begin with. I still think a guy like Adam Azim would probably beat him. So, yeah. But hey, Subriel Matias, he's got a world title again. So, hats off to him in an excellent fight. Puello will be back. Okay. This, to me, this next fight, this should have been the main event, okay? The amount of people that were in that arena to watch Shakur Stevenson was the largest support group by far of any other fighter there, maybe combined. This was a Shakur Stevenson crowd. I was going around conducting little impromptu interviews of, hey man, who you looking forward to? Shakur. Oh, I'm here for my guy Shakur. Oh, I'm from Newark too. Oh, I'm a Puerto Rican from Newark. I'm here for Shakur, man. Oh, I've been supporting Shakur for the longest time. Shakur, Shakur, Shakur. Nobody was like, oh no. One guy I met was like, oh yeah, I'm a big Edgar Berlanga guy. But beyond that one guy, this was not the, yeah, I'm here for Berlanga. Oh, I'm here for Puello, I was here for Imam Kitaev. This was a Shakur Stevenson crowd. He is the one that got those people in the door. This should have been the main event. And this is for the only fight. No, not the only, excuse me. But this is also for a world title. Whereas Berlanga versus Shiraz was not for a world title. But all of that aside, let's get into the performance. So when speaking with Adam Smith, he asked me, Philip, what are you most looking forward to on this card? What piques your interest? And I said, this is time for Shakur Stevenson to step up to the plate. We've had a lot of criticism over his last couple of opponents, whether it be Josh Padley or his performance against Edwin De Los Santos. This is the time. Zepeda is a 33-0 Mexican pressure fighter, 27 wins by knockout, the WBC mandatory. This is when Shakur Stevenson silences a lot of critics and makes a real statement, not only in regards to how good he is, but where he stands in the overall pound-for-pound best fighters in the world discussion. Shakur Stevenson did exactly that. Exactly that. If you do not now have Shakur Stevenson top 10 pound for pound, top 7 pound for pound, what are you doing? What are you doing? So I am so glad that I have stuck through thick and thin talking about how Shakur Stevenson is still the best in class at 135. It's now undoubtable. That is the best lightweight on the earth. No doubt in my mind. Did you see what he just did against William Zepeda, who has been running through good name after good name after great name in the lightweight division? Shakur Stevenson is the best lightweight in the world, okay? That was an incredible performance. He beat Zepeda at Zepeda's own game. All of the talk about Tom and Jerry fights and we're going to make the ring shrink and Shakur Stevenson's a runner and he's a track star and all of that dialogue, you now have to take it. Here, you know what? I'm going to do a classic Phil Likes Fights gag. hold on. Where is, give me, I've got something right here. Hold on. Let me get it. Hold on. This is going to be worth it. I promise. Okay, you ready? So we're going to go over here. Hey, look, you ready? This is all the people. This is the narrative that Shakur Stevenson is a boring runner that's afraid to get into a fight. Okay, this is the narrative that says that Shakur, he's got brittle hands. He can't punch. He can't hurt anyone. What's the other discussions? What's another thing you hear about Shakur? Oh, he doesn't throw enough punches. All this stuff. Okay, you ready? No. There we go. Boom. We got a Phil X Fights confetti moment over here. I've done this once before. I got to tear up paper so you know that I'm really talking about this in a serious way, okay? Shakur Stevenson proved everyone wrong. If you still have doubts now, I just don't know what to tell you. The evidence, the real physical evidence, supports my case far more than it supports your case, and that is just a fact of reality. Now, you can choose not to like the facts of reality. We all do that, right? Such and such news happened, and I don't like that. I'm going to complain. But it's a fact of reality now. Gotta just get that off my chest, because Shakur Stevenson stood in the pocket with Zepeda, and when he didn't stand in the pocket, he fought him off of the ropes. Off the ropes. What did everyone say, myself included, coming into this fight? Oh, Shakur's got to be careful if he goes along the ropes, you know. Don't let Zepeda back you up into a corner. That's Zepeda's wheelhouse. That's his bread and butter. The worst thing you could do against William Zepeda is go in a corner up against the ropes and minimize your exit points, right? You're closing yourself in. You are minimizing the size of that ring. That was the whole narrative, right? The whole narrative of the Turkey Al Sheikh post was, oh, the ring is going to shrink. Shakur Stevenson made that ring a 4x4 foot ring and still beat William Zepeda clearly, I think, by 10 or 9 rounds. Clearly. Maybe if you want to give Zepeda a fourth round, you could, but Shakur beat him clear, very clear, clearer than anyone has ever come close to beating William Zepeda. That was an amazing, amazing performance, and something that just felt amazing to watch. You know, watching Shakur Stevenson in a performance like that live in person, that was incredible to watch. Just so good. How do you get that good? Genuinely, right? You go to a boxing gym, you get a trainer, you start hitting the pads. When do you realize that you are a virtuoso of your craft? When do you realize that you have skills which a fraction of people can ever hope to attain? That was incredible. Now, did Shakur get hit more than he normally does? Yes. Did Shakur take more punishment, especially to the body, than he normally does? Yes. Did he also prove every single doubter wrong? 100%. So you can't have it both ways. You can't have that Shakur is a runner and all of this narrative stuff, which I've said is nonsense from the get-go, and then complain that, oh, last night he got hit too much. At that point, you are someone who does not operate on the concept of logic. Because here's what logic says, okay? I took a course on this on college, so let me give you a real intro lesson here. Logic says a statement is true if A is true, or a statement is false if B is true. So if you're holding that statement A is, let's say, Shakur is a runner, and then you also hold the statement B, Shakur got hit like too much last night, he shouldn't have done that, then you can't obtain a true or a false answer. You are now just negated. You don't have something that follows. You have to pick one of those, and if you try to pick both, you are just committing fallacies, okay? Great stuff by Shakur Stevenson. Now, I'm going to take a brief aside here before I get into the main event and talk about the merchandise that I picked up over at Ring Magazine number 3, because I didn't think that they were selling anything merchandise-wise, but then I saw someone wearing an Edgar Berlanga t-shirt, and I asked them, "Oh, did you just purchase that?" And they told me, "Yeah, if you go down to the side and a little offshoot, then there was a booth." So I went over to the Box Raw booth, and I picked up this hoodie here. So it's the Box Raw Ring Magazine collab. If you look on this sleeve here, it's got the Ring logo, then it's got the Box Raw logo there. Very, very nice hoodie. Very good quality, very thick. This is I've had hoodies before. This is like good like skater quality where it's like double lined on the hood. It's got a little inner zip pocket. Let me see if I can. Yeah, you see this right here? Yeah, that's a nice little inner compartment. Very nice. And with my purchase of this hoodie, I got a free copy of the latest Ring Magazine issue with Naiwa Inoue on the cover. Very cool. I gave this a read before. It's got the ranking section. There was a nice little feature in here. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, that was a good one too, but not the one I was looking forward to. Yeah, this one right here on the Bobcat, Bob Montgomery. This was a very nice read. So shout out to Nigel Collins. There was also a nice feature on, where was it? Yeah, a nice feature here on Naiwa Inoue talking about the potential for the Nakatani fight. Some good stuff there. It also came on the back. This is pretty sick. I'm going to try and get this in my room somewhere. But a nice little Naiwa Inoue 122, his undisputed run at 122 pounds. Cool little collage there, him with all the belts. That was pretty nice as well. So just wanted to show you guys that, give you a little show and tell. All right, without further ado, let's get into this. Edgar Berlanga, Hamza Shiraz. So all of the guys at the Box Raw stand, by the way, we're all from the UK. It's a British brand, I believe, at least in some part. And I was telling them, like, I don't know how many people here are are from the States telling you I think Shiraz is going to win, but I have Shiraz winning inside 6 rounds. And they're like, "Oh, yeah, Mike, that's great." You know, all that stuff, right? And you had the whole audience there, a lot of people supporting Puerto Rico. Edgar Berlanga just got beat up. Like, the first 4 or so rounds were close and not too much happened. But the second that Hamza Shiraz was able to, I think, correctly measure the distance, that was the big thing. Because Shiraz was throwing heat from the opener, but he didn't have the proper distance yet. The second that he lined up Edgar Berlanga, that fight was over. That fight was over. Great performance by Hamza Shiraz, stepped up to the plate, and better than all of those things, proved me correct because, as I showed on the last podcast, I had Hamza Shiraz winning that fight by stoppage in 5 or so rounds. It didn't matter that Berlanga went to the distance with Canelo, so we can tire that silly narrative. I also don't think that means that Shiraz is better than Canelo, but great performance by Shiraz. Very great performance. Humble guy. Nice power. We can always keep up that joke about Ilford Tommy Hearns, which is very funny to me. But great performance. I mean, I'm not going to go on a whole diatribe and, yell expletives like I did for the Shakur Stevenson fight, because ultimately this wasn't for a world title. I didn't rate Edgar Berlanga nearly as high as I rated William Zepeda, but for what Shiraz was going up against, which was coming off of a draw against Carlos Adames and a poor performance, coming up in weight to a new division, new trainer in Andy Lee, looked very serviceable. And 168 is a very fun, very interesting, dynamic division. So good on Shiraz. I'm curious to see what they do with him next. Maybe a Jamal Charlo, maybe just straight into a Canelo fight. I think that we still have to wait for the winner of Canelo Crawford, which Crawford could win. I have to really look into more on who I'm picking in that fight, but yeah, if Canelo does come through with that and he doesn't retire, then maybe they just go Shiraz next. And I liked his speech, by the way, about how it doesn't matter if I win or lose. If I get the chance to fight Canelo, I will trade in the pocket with him until one of us goes down. I thought that was actually really badass because that's throwing shade on Berlanga, shade on Munguia, shade on Jermell Charlo, you know. Except it's not shade on John Ryder, by the way. Got to give a shout out to John Ryder. He had the last good performance against Canelo. But yeah. Oh, also shade on William Skull, of course. All right. To close this out, I'm going to go over a little brief thing of other people that I had met. So I got to meet Chris Mannix again. I met him at Sandy Ryan, Michaela Mayer, the rematch. Met him again, talked to him a little bit. You know, always very nice, very conversational. I met Abdullah Mason very briefly. He was, of course, he's always pretty nice, gentlemanly. So the last two people I met, very fun story here to wrap this up. When I was leaving the arena, I got insanely lost. I don't even know what I was doing. I was tired. I was inexperienced with the venue. I ended up stumbling into the VIP, like off drop-off zone where all the people are coming out of the fighter area. And as I'm walking on these dark streets, I come across someone on the phone, and then I do a double take, and I go, are you Ade Oladipo? He's like, yeah, mate, hold on 1 second. And then he was like on the phone. He hung up, and then I was talking to him. I'm like, hey, Ade, great to meet you, man. Like, yeah, I just kind of stumbled in here on accident. And he's like, oh, it's nice to meet you. And what's your name? I'm like, oh, Philip. He's like, oh, I'm going to remember that. So, Ade, great to meet you, man. Thanks for the photo. Thanks for the conversation. Made my getting lost in an area I was not comfortable with a lot easier to deal with. And then I also met another legend of the game, Steve Bunce. Came across him. Nice guy. He was actually telling me that Barry Jones, who he was about to go meet, was talking about me for meeting him at Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano. So I was tracking down that group the whole time. But they're a bunch of good guys, bunch of very fun people that I hope to meet again in the future. I genuinely cannot say one bad thing about anyone that I met. Great performances across the board, great events, great crowds. Not too much else I can say beyond one of the best experiences inside of 24 hours that my life has ever produced. So thank you all if you're still watching, if you're still here. I'm going to again implore you, if you enjoyed my recap, if you enjoyed everything I had to tell you guys today and share with you, again, a like, a follow, a subscription, anything helps. It was a joy to go through this, recap all the memories again, and I look forward to doing this all again. So without further ado, I'm still going to have a podcast come out. Hopefully there's a ton to get to between Alexander Usyk and Manny Pacquiao. Tons of fights to break down for this upcoming weekend, but I figured this recap needed its own dedicated video. So again, I will see you all hopefully later this week with my predictions for the upcoming mega weekend of July the 19th. But this has been Phil X Fights with a live recap for Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano 3 and The Ring Magazine number 3. I will see you all soon. Bye.